I had a lot of different jobs. Worked in construction. Started out as a laborer and pushed a cement buggy where we built what they call the whistlejack job. It was 11 stories high. And then when that was all done, I went to work for a sheet metal company, and we put hung all the steel piping on the outside and the inside of the mill. And then I got a job as a carpenter. I painted water towers. Uh, and I finally moved to Texas. And I had put up sheetrock in St. Louis, so I know how to do it. And there was no work in Texas, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But finally, they brought a big project into Brownwood, Texas. That's Central Texas, Central North Texas, not on the coast. That's Brownsville. But at any rate, I went to the contractor and got the job of putting up all the sheetrock. And I told him I had two buddies that I would teach how to put up the sheetrock, which I did. And I made enough money there that I finally decided to leave Brownwood because of the tornadoes. Too many of them, and I didn't like them. Although I'd seen plenty of them in Illinois. But anyhow, my wife at that time had a sister in California, so I said, we got to the main highway, and I said, well, that way goes to Florida, that way goes to California, and I'd kind of like to go where it's a little warmer. And she said, well, I got a sister in California, so that's where we went. And for a while I worked as a carpenter, but they just have you doing one job. You're either doing framing or you're on the roof doing sheeting, which is what they had me doing. And you learn, you get very fast at it. You put down that plywood with 8-penny nails, and you get to where you tap the nail once to set it, and then you hit it one more time and you drive it all the way home. So, you get fast at it. Just set and boom and go on to the next one. But I didn't like that. I wanted to build houses from the ground up, learn how to do the whole thing. Anyway, that ran out, and then I thought, well, what else can I do? And I got into security work. I went to work for an outfit called the Newton Detective Agency in Long Beach, California. And they'd send me up to the, I'd work the warehouses out on the docks, and I'd do that for 8 hours a day, and you couldn't sit down, you had to keep moving. And I'd find two crates the same height, and I got to where I'd do dips, which really built my arms up. And the longshoremen drank a lot of beer, so there were barrels of beer cans, and in those days, they were regular metal, they weren't aluminum. But I got to where I could crush them, and I'd do that all day long. And then when I'd get home after 8 hours, I'd clean up, they'd send me out as a bouncer in the nightclubs for another 6 hours. And one of my favorite places was a place called Vivian Laird's in Long Beach, California. Beautiful big nightclub. They had 3 bars. Each one had either a piano player or a little combo. And then they had a huge dance floor with booths all the way around for families. And they had a nice orchestra as well. And they also had a convention room, which now and then they would use. And I was in charge of that. And I think that helped me when I finally got into doing Cheyenne, because I was used to carrying a badge and a gun. But they were only paying $1.47 an hour. and I wasn't getting very far financially, so I heard that in Las Vegas you had a chance to make a lot better money. And you'd get tips from the customers and so on. And now and then you'd find money on the floor or whatever, and if you found something legitimately, that was yours. But anyway, I packed up my wife. I had a 41 Oldsmobile, but I sold that so that in order to buy the uniform and the gun and all, when I worked for Newton Detective Agency, and so I bought a little 36 Chevrolet Coupe.
Wow.
And it didn't have a starter motor in it, so I'd have to push it to start it. And I was strong enough. I'd push it a ways and jump in, let the clutch out, and start it. Anyway, I bought a little old trailer, and I packed my wife and daughter in there. And my daughter was then about 4 or 5 years old. And we headed for Las Vegas. And when I got there, I went to see the sheriff, and I remember I had $26 in my pocket. And the sheriff said, "Well, gee, Mr. Walker, I'm sorry, but you have to live here for 6 months before you can apply to be a deputy sheriff, which is what you do if you want to work the casinos." And I thought, oh boy, what am I going to do? And then a guy called him over that he'd been talking to, and they talked, and they'd look at me, and they talked some more, and finally he called me over and said, "Mr. Walker," he said, "I want you to meet Mr. Francis, who is going to be in charge of the security at the new Sands Hotel," which they were just building then. They hadn't finished it. They finished it about a month and a half later. And he said he would like to have you on his security. And he said, "Can you go to work tomorrow?" So I had a job as of the next day.
Wow.
So I was there about a year and a half, I guess. I met quite a few show people that worked there in the Copacabana showroom. And Van Johnson was there doing a show. I'd never talked to him before, but he came up to me one Saturday night and he said, "I don't know if you would be interested, but," he said, "one of Hollywood's biggest agents is here tonight and he'd like to talk to you." And of course, part of my job was being nice to people there. And I said, "Well, fine." And I talked to him, but I didn't seem very gung-ho about acting. And so he gave me his card and he said, "Well," he said, "you'd have to move back to Hollywood in order to do interviews." And he said, "And I can't promise you anything." And he said, "Here's my card. If you decide to come to Hollywood, let me know." And I got to thinking about it, thinking about the fact that, where was carrying a gun and a badge going to get me? Maybe shot. But financially, it's not going to do much for me. So I packed the wife and my daughter up, and by that time, the old Chevy Coupe had thrown a rod through the block, so now I had a little used Willys station wagon, which it only had a 4-cylinder motor, but I liked it. It was a cute little outfit. And we packed up and went to Hollywood, and then I went out and got my own job as a bouncer at a place called the Rag Doll, owned by Joe Giangiuli and Tony Moscas. And I went to work for them nights, and I got $3 an hour. More than twice what I was making for Newton Detective Agency. And that enabled me to go on the interviews during the daytime.